Welcome to Issues and Answers. I'm Charleston. Today we're going to be talking about I-526 and the possibility of its completion. For some, it's going to happen. For others, no. We don't want it to happen, they say. But I have a gentleman who is with me today that you will want to meet. He's a gentleman who is a very, very large businessman in the community, very well known. In addition to that, he's with the Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to talk with us in very point-blank terms about why we need it when we look at traffic, etc., and why it's got to be done. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Issues and Answers. As promised, we're going to be talking about completing I-526. Most of you have heard a lot of discussion on that topic, and I want to bring something fresh to you today in the way of what should we be doing. And that comes from the Chamber of Commerce and a gentleman who many of you may know. He is Thomas and Hutton's President and Chief Executive Officer, J. Mitchell Bohannon. Welcome, sir. It's nice having you here.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Well, thank you very much. The Chamber's been looking, well, let's go this way. The Chamber's been involved in transportation for quite a while. As a matter of fact, the Transportation Half Cent Sales Tax, the Chamber of Commerce helped to get that project underway. And now we're faced with I-526 and whether or not it should be completed. Where do you stand on that, and what do you do exactly for the Chamber that has you involved?
Okay. The Chamber recognized that in so much of the infrastructure needs in our community, there's been a lot of dialogue that's been going on amongst any number of special interest groups. And the Chamber realized that the 2,500 members of the Chamber, which are the businesses that really make this community what it is, had not really had a voice in that. And so the Chamber put together a group called the Infrastructure Visioning Task Force. And I am co-chair of that along with Stuart Whiteside. And we've been working to prioritize what, from a business perspective, what we felt like were the most important infrastructure elements that needed to be built to keep our community sustainable, to keep our community a great place to live, and to reduce the congestion in our community. And so we've been working for about a year, maybe a year and a half now doing that. And we believe that the business community needs to weigh in and show support for building infrastructure, which is critical to our community.
Now, I want everybody to understand, we're not talking about the half-cent sales tax program. We're talking about money that comes from an organization that Mr. Bohannon will speak with us about in just a second. It comes from that organization. Those dollars are already committed to Charleston. Now, where does the money come from, and why is it already committed?
Well, the Charleston community made application to State Infrastructure Bank for $420 million for construction of I-526. That money was approved, and so there's the State Infrastructure Bank has that money allocated, $420 million, to Bill 526. There's been a lot of discussion that's been in the news about that money. Mm-hmm. So basically in their coffers, they've set aside that money and said, if you move forward with I-526, we've got $420 million that we're going to loan you to Bill 526. And I'm a firm believer, the Chamber's a firm believer, that I-526 is just absolutely critical to the long-term needs, transportation needs of our community.
If it's critical, what's holding it up?
There's just, in our opinion, there's been just too much dialogue about whether it's necessary or not, or unnecessary. And if you step away from all the emotional issues that are involved in 526, and I've heard it said the only person that likes change is a baby with a dirty diaper. Okay, so if you step away from the emotional issues and you look at the technical data, okay, and technical data is all these various traffic studies that have been done by CHATS, the Charleston Area Transportation Plan, and all the consultants who've done work for CHATS, the consultants who've done work for the county on the half-cent sales tax program, and you look at just the technical data, I-526 needs to be built as part of the critical transportation infrastructure in our community. And it's gotten confused by the dialogue of whether it's really, people really want it or not. And most of if you look at the vast majority, we believe, of people who've been polled, there really is a desire to build this extension of 526.
I think some are saying too that it's only for those who want to go down to Kiowa to PGA tournaments, like we had last week, and there's no real interest in that from the rest or from the general population.
Well,
it's just the well-to-do.
That's really not true. If you look at the traffic impact studies that have been done, and you look at the improvements in traffic in the entire West Ashley region, James Island, Folly Beach, and the peninsula, the completion of 526 improves traffic in all those areas. And it's not just traffic going to Kiowa and Seabrook. Even though that's some of it, it's not all of it. Building 526 extension of 526 from Savannah Highway over to the existing terminus at Folly Road improves traffic on Savannah Highway. The congestion at Main Road and Highway 17 that occurs every morning, so much of that would be alleviated. The congestion on Maybach Highway, building 526 would cut the traffic going over the bridge on Maybach Highway and through James Island by almost half. So it would improve the traffic congestion on James Island by building 526. So it's really a regional component. It's not necessarily it wouldn't make it easier to get to Kiowa and Seabrook, but if you think about the people who travel to Kiowa and Seabrook, more people travel from North Charleston, from West Ashley, from James Island, from Mount Pleasant, out to Kiowa and Seabrook each day, providing goods and services than there are people from Kiowa and Seabrook traveling into town.
Well, now we had a little test here because the PGA was in town, well, in the area. At Kiowa.
Yes.
Was there the kind of congestion that those who opposed this project expected, and did it rain havoc on the islands, especially John's Island?
You know, sir, I think that's in the eyes of the beholder. From the reports I've heard, most of the congestion occurred out at Fresh Fields in the general public parking area, and it's getting people into that parking lot and out of that parking lot. And it did back up on Betsy Harrison. I understand it backed up on Betsy Harrison Parkway, and even some on maybe on River Road and Bohicket Road. Mm-hmm. But it was primarily centralized around the parking area getting into and out of Fresh Fields.
Had I-526 been completed in that direction, would we have seen that kind of congestion even?
Oh yes, again, the problem was getting people in and out of the parking lot. It wasn't getting them out to Kiowa and Seabrook.
Okay. So does that then make a case for 526 not being completed?
Oh no, oh no. Again, if you look at what it's the infrastructure that's necessary that improves traffic in the entire region, not just Kiowa and Seabrook. And that's how this gets cast. It gets cast as we're building something for the rich folks at Kiowa and Seabrook, and it's really not true. It is for transportation infrastructure for our entire community. People on James Island, people on Folly, people on West Ashley, and people on the peninsula. It improves it in the entire region.
Would there be opportunities for jobs and businesses if that is completed, if 526 is completed?
Sure, construction jobs certainly add to our economy. I mean, all those dollars that get pumped into our community get multiplied over and over again, so it certainly would improve our community and be an economic benefit to our community by putting that money, spending that money here.
When we come back from the break, I want to talk further with Mr. Bohannon about I-526 and why wasn't it completed in the first place when we built the first part? Why wasn't it just finished then? We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Issues and Answers. We're talking about I-526 and the completion of that project, and I'm talking with a gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce, and he is J. Mitchell Bohannon, and I wanted to make sure I said that right because he's such an important man, and he was kind to come here and talk with us about some of the pros and cons of that project. And when we left to go to the break, I was saying, why didn't we complete the project when we were starting it? Why did we leave just a piece of that project there? And what happened? Did we run out of money?
I think we ran out of money.
Oh. And so that was it?
That's the limiting factor in most of these is money.
Where was the state infrastructure bank money?
The State Infrastructure Bank was only recently constituted in the last several years. So it's a relatively new vehicle to be used, or new tool to be used to be able to fund infrastructure projects.
When we got that project started, that I-526 project started, did we know that we weren't going to be able to finish it, and it would go to a certain point and that would be it until we could raise additional dollars?
Well, if you recall, I-526, even today, has been built in sections. The section from Folly Road downtown was one section was built. I think the original section when I first moved here was probably from Savannah Highway to, I think it maybe went to 26, may have gone a little bit farther, than the section from 26 to Long Point Road, and then from Long Point Road on over to Savannah to Charleston Highway. Johnny Dodds.
You chair a committee with the chamber.
I'm co-chair of the committee, yes.
You're co-chair of a committee. And is that committee looking at 526 as well?
Oh, yes. The extension of 526 from Savannah Highway to Folly Road is just one of 16 projects we've identified as critical infrastructure needs for our area. And there are many, many more. Sure. And what we had to do, we were trying to prioritize those that were most critical.
Mr. Bohannon, why is I-526 important to this community? Is it economics or what?
Well, it's partially economics, but it's also quality of life. For those people who are traveling from North Charleston to Kiowa every day to go to work, to cut 15, 20 minutes out of their trip one way, that's extra half hour you give them each day if you can cut that time out of their trip. For the people who are out on James Island who want to go out on Savannah Highway, to be able to cut 10 minutes off that trip, that's improving their quality of life. Getting the congestion off the roadways improves quality of life. And it improves just taking the vehicle time away, and the pollutants come out just from air pollution from cars sitting on the road idling is an improvement to our community, an improvement to our environment. So it's if you look at it in totality, certainly it helps transportation, certainly it's economic, but it's about quality of life, and you have to look at the total picture.
I think the conservationists would say, but what about the beauty of the islands? We want the islands to remain just as they were. The aesthetics there are awesome. There's no need to make change. We don't want all of this smoke and visitors and trampling on our beautiful island and riding through it and stopping at stores and having sandwiches and all that kind of stuff that goes on as folks are on their way for vacations. How do you respond to that?
Well, if at the day of creation, when Adam and Eve were in the garden and Eve took a bite from the apple tree, if she'd never done that, I guess everything would always be bliss and hour, but that didn't happen. And so now we're left to be stewards of this earth. And part of that is taking care of mankind's needs. I mean, the population is, unless we artificially, like China, decide we're not going to allow the population to grow, the population is going to grow. And so for the population to grow, we have to be very proactive in taking positive steps to minimize mankind's impact on our community. And doing that provides good infrastructure, because then people get quickly where they want to go. Now, some would say we don't build anything, we all ride bicycles. That's not reasonable in today's environment. And our world has progressed to the point where we are dependent upon vehicular transportation. Our community is not large enough. We don't have the critical mass here to have a very effective mass transit operation. If you look, you've got to be a very large city to have a really effective mass transit. So our community is going to be dependent upon vehicular transportation for a long, long time. And putting the pieces in place so that we have the critical infrastructure so that people can move from place to place efficiently and quickly is important, and it improves the quality of life by doing that.
The State Infrastructure Bank that we've been talking about before provides this money, and I think that money is collected by that organization and then delved out to various communities based on the kinds of projects they have in mind, and if they meet the various criteria that I imagine has been set up by SIB. That's sort of an overview, unless you want to add to that.
No, that's right. They have some funding that's available to them. Some is appropriated by the legislature. Some of it comes back in repayment of loans that comes back to the infrastructure bank. But they go through a process of evaluating those loans based on merit, and they rank those when they have a pot of money to loan. They look at all the applications they have and they rank them, and they they do their very best to determine which one of those projects is going to have the greatest impact on improving the state of South Carolina, and those are the ones who get funded.
I don't know what happened between the time that the State Infrastructure Bank offered Charleston County made an application for the money.
Yes.
So it sounded like they wanted they, meaning the county, representing the people, wanted that money to come into this area so that we would be able to build I-526 and to complete it.
Right.
What happened?
Well, a couple of things happened. One, the money got appropriated, so then there's a whole body of technical work that has to be done in order to prepare to be able to build the roadway. Environmental impact studies, siting studies, all the technical work, just to determine where to put the road, what the impacts are, how to minimize those impacts. So all that work was going on. And some of that money, if you've heard, around $10, $11, $12 million already been spent doing some of that work. And then this dialogue about whether to build or not build 526, extension of 526, came to the forefront. And so we've been talking about it as a community for a long time.
Why didn't somebody just do something? In the government, in the chamber, or the powers that be? I don't know.
The county had the responsibility, had taken responsibility for building it. So county council was the entity which could have forced that issue and pushed the issue of construction. And again, it became a somewhat contentious issue. It's easy to be a vocal opponent and create a lot of discord and dialogue around issues, which makes it hard sometimes to have the political will to move forward with things that are really necessary.
Well, that's true. And you know, I've been around a little while too, and what bothers me is that the silent majority may think something entirely different. They just don't come out and say it. We're going to talk about that and a few other things that has to do with this project. We want to know if it's going to get built from Mr. Bohannon, and when and by whom. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Please don't go away. I'm talking with Mitchell Bohannon, and he is with the Chamber of Commerce. He is also President and Chief Executive Officer of Thomas and Hutton. And he is involved, along with his committee and many others at the Chamber, are involved in taking a look at this I-526 issue and trying to determine whether or not we can go through with it or it's not going to happen. So I've been asking Mr. Bohannon, Mitch, he asked me to call him, I appreciate that. I'm Cheryl. I've been asking him, who should build this? Now, the county was asked to complete the project by getting the SIB, or state infrastructure money. Now, that's in question. So who now should take responsibility for making sure that it gets completed? Should it be the county? Should it be the state DOT? Is there some other entity that I haven't thought about?
Well, that's actually a quite complex question. In order to build 526, it takes approval from the state and from the Federal Highway Administration, because it's part of the interstate program. The county had taken responsibility for that when they applied to the Infrastructure Bank, got the $420 million loan from the Infrastructure Bank, as long with money from the sales tax program to help fund some of this. Counties decided to send that back to DOT and ask DOT to complete the roadway, which is fine. DOT builds roads all the time, and a road of this magnitude is probably more in the wheelhouse of expertise of DOT than really is the county. The county's built a lot of roads, done a lot of great things with the
But they would hire a
program.
contractor, a major contractor.
Yes, they would hire somebody to design it. DOT would still be involved in management of building 526.
It's DOT's road for maintenance anyway, isn't it?
Yes, so it makes a lot of sense for DOT to be responsible for building 526, and you know, the county's asked them to do that, and DOT, to my understanding, is still trying to decide whether they want to take that responsibility or not.
Now, I know the DOT is asking people through surveys how they feel about this, and I don't know what the outcome has been yet. Maybe you know, I don't know. Will that govern how they behave from this point on, or is something else going to encourage them, meaning DOT, to go ahead, take the bull by the horns, and build it?
You know, Cheryl, I don't know what they're going to do with the survey. I thought about this. You know, if I'd asked my kids when they were younger if they wanted to do their homework, they would have said no. Okay. So if you ask enough people of the right constituency whether they want this built or not, they're going to say no. But if you step back from all of this special interest and you just look at what's best for our community, what makes sense for the greater Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester County area, building 526. In my mind, it's not a matter of if we're going to build 526 extension from Savannah Highway to Foley. It's just a matter of when.
Why do you think that? Why do you say it's just a matter of when?
Because the population is going to grow. It's going to grow.
And we're going to have to have it.
We're going to have to have it.
Oh.
Doing some intersection improvements and other things will help. It'll certainly help. It'll make life better. But it's not going to solve, it's fundamentally not going to solve the long-term problem of having to get people from point A to point B in our community. And that is just a critical element of the infrastructure that's needed. It may not be the most pressing thing today. There may be some other things that are more pressing, more critical in today's environment. But we've got some money to build this. So if you really need another bedroom on your house and you've got the money, and you may not need it, but you're planning on a child, wouldn't you go ahead and do that in preparation for needing it?
Do you have any idea as to where that money would go if Charleston doesn't use it to complete I-526?
We'll go back to the State Infrastructure Bank. The State Infrastructure Bank will then put it back in their pool of resources that they then reallocate based on the applications that are before them at that time. The likelihood is, if it goes back into that pool, the vast majority of it will not come back to the Charleston area.
And I hear there are other communities that want that money badly.
Oh, they have a number of pending applications. They have limited resources, and again, they apply those to the areas most critical based on the criteria they use, which they try to be very objective in determining the most critical needs. That one's already been approved, so if that money goes back, that project goes away. They don't pick another project in Charleston or Berkeley or Dorchester County. They pick what is the most pressing need across the state.
So they won't come back here probably ever again.
Well, they may fund some other projects in the Charleston area, but they won't take that money and transfer it to another project. We might get a little of it, we might get none of it. There's no way to know.
If that bridge remains as it is, that roadway, I-526, it doesn't get extended, and where would it get extended to very quickly?
Well,
and then once you answer that, if it doesn't happen with all of the income of people migrating to this area, traffic, businesses, and all of the things that are going on right now, what is going to happen to our community without that extension if it doesn't happen?
Well, the extension will run from where it currently the current terminus at Savannah Highway. Extend from Savannah Highway over to Maybank Highway, from Maybank Highway to Riverland Drive to Foley Road. That'll complete the loop. And then 526 will go all the way from downtown Charleston all the way around to Mount Pleasant, and it actually extend on Hungry Neck on out. You know, what's going to happen, if you take Johns Island as an example, in 2001 there were about 5,000 homes or residences on Johns Island. There are another 14,000 then that have been approved that have not yet been built. So the population on Johns Island is going to expand threefold. Whether 526 gets built, whether anything else gets approved or not, the likelihood is, and if you go over to Johns Island today and look, they're building houses on Johns Island at a pretty good clip today. Brand new houses going up, adding traffic. These are things that have already been approved. It's not new developments. It's just stuff that's on the books. So if we don't provide the infrastructure, we're going to reach gridlock with our transportation system, and then the quality of life for all of us. I mean, anyone who lives here remembers driving up 526 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the intersection of 526 and 26. It was gridlock until 26 was expanded to 6 lanes.
Is it a good idea to put this on the ballot this year, or wait?
Well, when you say put it on the ballot, really, I think the question is whether we should build it or not.
Right.
And that question has been asked so many times. Again, you know, if you want to know the answer to the question, it depends upon how you ask it. And crafting the question so that people completely understand what the question is. And then if the question is put on the ballot, there will be a campaign by those who are vehemently opposed. It will spend a lot of money, a lot of resources on a campaign to oppose this. And on the chamber and others who are in favor of this, even the county, there is no money today for a campaign to support passage of referendum. So it would be a difficult, it'd be a real challenge to pool the resources and prepare a campaign to combat the money from those who are already opposed.
But it sounds like we can look for one sometime in the near future. If that's the way it sounds to me.
Well, you know, Cheryl, I understand that the paper actually ran a poll. They can run polls anytime. You know, they do little polls from time to time. We understand the last time they did this, they put a poll up about who was in favor, who was opposed. The numbers were 75% in favor of extending 526, and they pulled that poll pretty quickly because it wasn't going the way some people wanted it to go.
We're going to have to get you back and see how this project progresses or doesn't progress. I find it very interesting, and you're a good spokesman for it, and we appreciate you being here today. And if you want additional information on this project, you see on the screen a website that you can contact. Use that information. Become informed, really informed, and for yourself, not having someone tell you what you should think, but for yourself. And we'll have speakers such as Mitchell Bohannon here periodically who can help you understand what you're seeing and what you're reading. As far as this program is concerned, Issues and Answers, we're always happy to find guests who will bring you information that is important and of interest to you. So until the next time, this has been Issues and Answers. I'm Cheryl Charleston.